Episode 70. Hello, thanks for tuning in to another episode of Dogman Encounters Radio. I'm Vic Cundiff, and I'll be your host as we listen to eyewitness encounters involving one of the most terrifying cryptids, Dogmen. Our guest tonight is Tim Sexton. Tim, welcome to Dogman Encounters Radio. Thanks so much for coming.
Hi, Vic. Thanks for having me.
Oh, thanks for being here. Tim, give us a brief bio on yourself.
All right. I am 25 years old. I was born in Cincinnati, Ohio. I grew up in southeastern Indiana, and I currently live in southwestern Ohio. My profession is I'm a forklift operator.
We've got a lot to talk about tonight, Tim. From what I understand, your little sister's had several encounters with dogmen. Please tell us about these encounters she's had.
Yes, she did. My sister first told me about some encounters she'd been having with seeing something that looked a lot like a werewolf. I don't know the exact year that it happened. She said one night she went to bed. It was probably around 9, 10 o'clock in the evening. She was having trouble sleeping. She was just laying in her bed. She looked out of her window, and she saw something that, at first she described it as a large, dark shape, but she could see certain details on it. She said it was about my height. I'm 5'11". She said that she could see pointed ears on top of its head, and that she could see a large snout coming out of the front of its head, almost like a wolf's head. She could tell it was covered in hair. She could see human arms and hands on it. She described the arms as being extremely long. I asked her how long they were. She never told me, but I would be comfortable assuming that they would have at least reached down to its knees. I asked her what type of leg structure it had on it. I asked if it had human-like legs or not. The only thing she could come up with was they looked deformed. The closest thing she could describe the legs to was the werewolf legs out of the Underworld movies. Like with the backward pointing knee, like they're slightly human-like, but they also have that wolf-like appearance to them. She said it had glowing orange eyes. After she'd seen the thing, she freaked out and basically hid under her covers, and that was her first encounter. The second encounter that she had happened, I'm not exactly sure how long after. And this actually kind of creeped me out. She told me she saw one standing outside of my bedroom window. She said that it was same exact shape, same exact head, ears, snout, everything. It had I believe she said it was a dark brown coat of fur on it. And she also said it had glowing orange eyes, and that it was basically like crouched right outside of my window looking in. She said that as soon as she saw it, that it looked at her and then took off running. I've asked her if it ran on 4 legs or if it ran on 2 legs. She said that the times that she has seen them, it's been a little bit of both. Like, for instance, one might run on 2 legs and another one might run on 4 legs. She said that the one that was crouched outside of my bedroom window, she said that it ran on 4 legs. I asked her if she'd ever seen one walk. She said no. It was pretty much they were either standing there looking at you or they were going into a full sprint. I'm not sure how many others she's seen. I know she said that she has seen at least several with several different color coats. Like I said, the first one she saw she said it had black hair. I would be comfortable assuming that it was the same one that was crouched outside of my window. So possibly a dark brown coat. It was just nighttime, so it's kind of hard to see what color hair it would have. She said she's seen a lighter brown one. She has seen a dark gray, almost black colored one, and she has seen an all white one. Actually, I've asked her if there was like any movie reference she could give me, werewolf-wise, like what would they look like. And she said that the closest ones were the ones from the Underworld movie. I wasn't too sure exactly which ones she meant because there's different types in that movie genre. So I sent her pictures of ones from the first movie and then one from the second movie with a more wolf-like head on it. And she said that the more wolf-like one was what she'd seen. She said the only difference was that the snout wasn't as long. It also wasn't as narrow. So she basically described it with a shorter snout with a little bit more thickness to it. I asked her if they all resembled the same height, and she said that they were similar. Some were taller than others. These things that she's seen have ranged anywhere from 5'11" to 7 feet tall. I've asked her to describe how heavy she would assume one would be, and she said that there's no doubt that they could have been 200 pounds or heavier. I've also asked her where at she's seen them. She has seen them outside of her window, outside of my window. She's seen them out in the woods. I've asked her how deep in the woods she's seen them. One encounter she said she had one basically charge at her while she was walking one of our dogs. We used to have horses out there. There was a gate that basically led out to the woods. And she said that she could clearly see the gate still. So she wouldn't have been more than, probably maybe 10, 15 feet from the gate when she had one come running towards her. She's also said that she's gotten as far back as our hunting tree stands, which are, I'd probably say, at least several football fields length away from our house. So not too far back, usually, but she has seen them back there. I've also asked her, if she got any strange feelings when they are around, and she had told me that it's like an electrifying fear just kind of goes through you. You don't even have to see them. You just know that they're around, is what she basically described it as. The closest feeling that you can get to it is basically that prey feeling. She said that she gets that feeling that if one is watching her or around, it gives you that feeling of basically saying, I could kill you if I wanted to, but I'm probably not going to. But if I really, really wanted to, I could tear you apart. That's really all she told me about what she's seen.
With most people, if they had had that many encounters, they wouldn't be heading out into the woods. Why do you think she is able to go out and function outdoors the way it would appear she can?
Well, Vic, my sister's a lot like how I am. We both grew up playing outside. Like myself, she has a deep love of nature. So I don't think she's going to live her whole life just hiding from these things. I mean, my sister's always been one to, when she was younger, she was always one to play outdoors. That's really the only way I can explain it truthfully.
Did she say what she was doing, what helped her catch these things looking in your window, looking in her window? Because as you know, most people don't spend all that much time at night looking out their windows. I take it from what you said, almost all of these encounters where she saw them looking in your windows, whether it's your bedroom window or her bedroom window, these always happened at night, didn't they?
Her first encounter did happen at night, yes. The second encounter happened early morning, probably around 6 a.m.
Oh, I see. Well, as you know, most people don't spend time looking out the windows, although there are some people, if she has an appreciation for nature the way you do, I guess it's not a stretch to think that she would spend more time than most looking out them, so I guess that does fit.
Yeah, well, the thing is, too, with the way her bed sat, it faced the window. The foot of her bed would be facing towards her window. My room was directly across from hers. So basically, as soon as she would open the door, she could be looking straight into my bedroom. I believe with her second encounter, she said that it was early in the morning. I would imagine the time we were probably getting ready for school at the time, because I'm only about 4 years older than her. So it would definitely be, if she had seen one outside of my window, it would have been her looking directly out, into my bedroom. And my window is right there across from my doorway.
Ah, I see. If she was 7 or 8 when she had this first encounter, did you notice any abrupt changes in her behavior or demeanor right after this encounter took place?
Truthfully, nothing's really coming to mind. Maybe a little bit more fearful, a little bit more anxious, but nothing's really sticking out.
She did tell you about this encounter right after it happened, didn't she?
Yes, I would probably say within a month or two after her first encounter. I never really asked her for how long she'd been seeing them, but yeah, she definitely told me like right after it happened. I'd say within a month or two span.
Did she ever say why she waited so long to mention the fact that she had had this encounter before telling you? Because for a 7 or 8-year-old, that is a long time to hold something that extraordinary in.
Well, the only thing that I can really think of is possibly being afraid of being ridiculed. You really don't ever hear people tell stories about Dogman or werewolves or whatever you want to call them because it's just something that just does not make sense. In her own words, she said it basically opened her eyes up to a world that not many people know even exists or even want to know exists. And with Dogman, you face a certain ridicule when you talk about it. I mean, something like Bigfoot or something like that, that's something that can be definitely accepted. I mean, because pretty much what most people say with Sasquatch, it's a large primate. So yeah, that's something that's pretty believable. But when you start talking about a 6 to 7 foot tall wolf-like creature that walks on two legs, it's just something that does not make sense. So I can definitely see her keeping it in because she's afraid of being laughed at or being ridiculed.
Yeah, that does make sense. I want to make sure that it's clear to you. I want to make sure it's clear to the people listening. I'm not accusing your sister of lying about any of this. Some of the things that you're sharing about how she handled these situations falls outside of what I would expect a normal reaction from a 7 or 8-year-old girl to be. So I'm simply asking these questions to try and understand her thought process or processes to explain why she handled some of these situations the way you said she handled them. That's all that's behind this. I just wanted to make sure that you understood.
Now, another thing too, you asked about why did she wait to tell anyone. I do remember her telling my parents about it, and it was almost like they brushed it off. It was almost like they were like, whatever you're seeing is not real. And it was pretty much, well, if you see it again, come get us type thing. So I mean, that right there could be another reason why she kept a lot of stuff in. I mean, because you're supposed to be able to tell your family anything, and when you feel like it's being brushed off, that right there might kind of make you definitely want to not speak about what you've seen.
That's true. If you get that kind of response from the people that you're supposed to be able to trust more than anyone else in the world, that would tend to make a person, especially a little girl like that, gun shy. So that is understandable. Well, let's get into these encounters that you had, Tim. Let's start off with the encounter that happened that night in your bedroom.
Okay, my encounter happened about a month or two after my sister told me about her encounter. My encounter happened in October. I had woken up at about 3 a.m. For some reason during that time, I just could not go back to sleep. For some reason, when I was that age, as soon as I woke up, that was it. I wasn't going back to bed, and I was up for however long I was going to be up for. So I went ahead, turned on my light, flipped on my television, and started watching. I can't truthfully remember what I was watching. Probably some infomercial or something like that. Probably about 15 minutes after I had been up, I heard a slight scratching sound outside of my window. I kind of sat there listening to it, and I thought, okay, maybe it's an insect or something like that. Then I remembered that it's October, and October's in the Midwest are pretty cold. There had already been a frost on the ground, so there was absolutely no way it could have been an insect. And the scratching just kind of continued. And, I started kind of getting a little freaked out because my sister just told me a month or so ago that she'd seen these things, and she'd even seen one outside of my bedroom window. So I thought, okay, well, maybe it's a person. Maybe like one of the neighbors got drunk or something like that and stumbled over to the wrong house and is just trying to get into their home. I went ahead and said, hey, if you're at the wrong house, you need to go home. Well, the scratching didn't stop after I said, hey, you need to go home. And the scratching just kept going on, and I went ahead and my leg was sticking out from under the covers, and I noticed that at the bottom of my drapes there was a slight opening. So I went ahead and I quickly moved my leg back, and as soon as I moved my leg, whatever it was stopped. Then the scratching continued with just a little bit more intensity. Not too fast, not too hard, about the same strength it was doing before, just a little bit faster. So I start panicking, thinking, okay, what the hell's outside of my window? If it's a person, I need to scare it away. I need to do whatever I possibly can to get it away. Well, directly outside of my room, if you walk out and take a right, you're entering into the living room, also the front door. Outside of the front door, there's a porch, and there is a light on the outside. So I thought, okay, I need to get out there, and I need to turn that light on, because if it is a person, I need to make them think that the people in the house are up, and that they're not going to be getting in here without a problem. So I went ahead and I rolled out of bed, got down on my stomach, and I began crawling, almost like a soldier crawling under barbed wire. I began crawling out of my room because I wanted to stay as low as I possibly could, just in case this thing, could see in my windows in some way, and I didn't want it to know what I was doing. So went ahead, began crawling out, got to my door frame, and looked around the corner because in front of the porch there's some windows, and I just wanted to make sure that nothing was looking in. I just wanted to make sure that whatever was out there wasn't somehow peeking in through those windows. Didn't see anything, so I began crawling, keeping as low to the ground as I possibly could. I eventually reached where the light switch was, and I quickly flipped on the outside porch light. Couldn't see anything outside. Went ahead and crawled back to my bedroom. Didn't hear the scratching anymore. So that kind of calmed me down. And went ahead, got back in bed, kept listening, and about 10 minutes later, the scratching started again. And that really freaked me out because I kind of realized at that point whatever was out there wasn't a person. It definitely wasn't. If it was a person, it wasn't a smart person. Because I mean, if you're trying to break into a house or something like that, once the lights come on, that's when you need to go. And if you're going to come back and try again, you're just not smart. So I definitely think that whatever was out there was not a human being. So the scratching just kept continuing. I mean, nothing other than that really happened. It basically continued on from the time it started, which was about 3:15, 3:30, I would say, until the sun came up. So about 7 a.m. or so. The next day, I went ahead and I told my parents, and actually I told my mother. I said, Mom, there was something scratching at my window last night. I don't know what it was. And she said, well, maybe it was your dog. We had an Alaskan Malamute for about 15, 16 years. And I was like, no, there was no way that it was my dog. And she said, well, how do you know? And I said, well, in the entire time we've had her, not once has she ever jumped up on the window and scratched it. Not once has she ever done anything like that. She just never did. And she said, well, I don't know what it was. And I was like, okay, well, I'm going to try to figure out what was going on out there. So went ahead, went outside, and I went to my bedroom window, and I wanted to see if I could see any tracks, any footprints, anything like that. Couldn't find any tracks because, like, right outside of the window is a large flower bed. The whole thing's covered in mulch. There's not very many flowers growing there. It's more pampas grass, yucca plants. There are a few flowers there. Not too many, though. So it's definitely something that you could easily conceal if you wanted to, because if the pampas grass is high enough, it definitely blocks the view of the window from the street. So went ahead, looked around my window, couldn't find any tracks. Then I went ahead and looked at the window itself, and I noticed that you could see where something had been scratching at the window. The screen was not tore up or anything like that. It was just slight cuts into the screen. And it looked a lot like, you could almost tell that whatever had done it had like fingers, like a human has. And that definitely really freaked me out. That was about the end of my first encounter.
That night when you had that encounter, Tim, was your dog, that Malamute, was she running loose where she could have put her paws up on that window in the first place?
Yes, she was. We always let our dogs run in our yard. We didn't keep them on chains or anything like that. We actually had a electric fence that they couldn't cross, so they would stay in our yard. Like I said, she never once did that the entire 15, 16 years we had her. The thing is, too, that with her, at the time, she probably would have been about 10 years old. So she would have been up there in her years. She definitely did have arthritis starting around that time. So I couldn't see her jumping up on the windows. We also had another dog. It was a pit bull mix. And this dog actually would jump up on the windows to scratch them, to let us know, hey, I want to come in. When she would jump on the windows and scratch them, she would shred the screens. I mean, they would be ripped to shreds. It got to the point where we had to train her not to do it because we were spending so much money on screens. That dog, she never once jumped up on my window either. The only windows she would jump up on were whichever one the family was in. So if we were in the kitchen or in like the dining room, she would jump up on those windows. If my family let her out at night to use the bathroom, she would jump up on my parents' bedroom window. She never once would come back to me. I mean, she was pretty much my mom's dog. So she would let my mom know, hey, I want to come inside. But with my screen, it wasn't shredded. And you could see where something had been scratching at it, but the screen wasn't tore apart. It wasn't shredded like what you would see with this dog.
And you said it looked like fingers with claws had done this damage instead of paws.
Yes.
Ew, that's pretty creepy.
I could definitely see a gap in each small tear. I mean, it was about the width of what my hand would be. Oh, actually, it was the width between my fingers. It definitely looked like if I had taken my hand and basically made it look like I had claws and just started scratching, that's exactly what it looked like.
Since you didn't see what did that night, we'll never know for sure what it was, but that does fit the mold of what these things do, so it sounds like that quite possibly might have been what it was. There's something that's so eerie about the idea of one of these things looking in your bedroom window at night, or having them scratch at the window, tap on it the way they seem to like to do. I don't know what it is about that that's so creepy, but your next experience that you had, it was, in my opinion, creepier than that first one. Tell us about your second experience.
The second experience I had happened a year or two later. I don't know exactly how long it had been. It was November. It was actually opening day of deer season. Me and my father were going out to go hunting. So we got up about, I'd probably say about 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, got our gear on, got ready, and we loaded up and we started walking back towards the woods. As I got closer to the woods, I suddenly did not feel right. I felt very on edge. I felt very uneasy. I felt like something was watching me, and I definitely didn't like it. Almost that prey feeling that my sister described. We went ahead and we started walking back. We got to our spot, and there was a downed tree log that I would sit on and hunt a lot of times. My dad goes, okay, you're going to go ahead and hunt here. I'm going to go to the other hillside, and I'm going to hunt up there. I, at the time, did not know that that's what he was going to be doing. I thought we were going to be hunting together. And I was like, wait a second. I thought we were hunting together. I thought that we were going to be together during this. He goes, no, you're going to hunt here. I'm going to hunt on the other hillside, and anything that comes in between us, we can go ahead and hopefully bag something. I was like, please don't go. Something's not right. And he goes, I have to. I need to go get on the other hillside. I need to go get set up. I've got to walk like another mile or two, and he's like, you'll be fine. And I was like, well, please, just leave me the flashlight. That's all I want. I just want the flashlight. No, I need the flashlight to see where I'm going. So I was like, okay, whatever. I've got a gun. It'll be okay. So went ahead, sat there. We watched him walk off. After he eventually disappeared from sight, sat there, kept listening, and then I heard something moving behind me. It started off at the top of a distance, and it slowly but surely began to make its way towards me. Sounded heavy. I really can't give you an exact estimate on how much I thought it weighed. I mean, it definitely sounded like it had some weight behind it. I can hear it moving slowly. I can hear leaves and sticks crunching and breaking. And I'm thinking, okay, well, maybe it's a deer. That's what I was hoping it was, at least. I mean, even though it was still dark out, and legal shooting hours wouldn't have been until the sun had started to come up. But it was still pitch black out, and I'm just kind of hoping, okay, it's a deer. I could hear it moving its way towards me, and it gets to be about, I would say, about 10, 15 feet behind me, and that's when I hear a low, deep, guttural growl. My heart just went right into my stomach when I heard that. All I could think was, there's something behind me. What do I do? I could just hear it behind me with that low, deep, guttural growl, and I couldn't think. I couldn't move. I was absolutely paralyzed with fear at that point. I thought about turning around and possibly firing a shot in the direction of what I'd heard. The reason I didn't was because the firearm that I was using a black powder muzzleloader. If you don't know how a muzzleloader works, it works a lot like how you see a musket. You've got to pour the powder into it. You've got to pack the powder down. You've got to then drive the bullet into the barrel of the gun, and then you've got to go ahead and put a cap on it. Then you can fire it. So had I done that, and had I missed, I would have definitely been in some trouble, because it would have taken me at least a minute or so to load it. Probably longer if I had fired and then taken off running. So I was paralyzed with fear. I did not know what to do. all I ended up doing was I basically curled up into a ball and just waited for daylight to come. Once daylight came, that was basically about the end of it. It was like it came up behind me, growled, freaked me out. I just panicked and curled up, not knowing what to do, and that was the end of the second encounter.
Did your dad come in to you and that's how you got together, or did you just leave almost immediately heading for your dad's hunting location to tell him about what had just happened?
I waited. I've never told my father about what happened. My father's very serious about hunting. That's his passion. That's something he loves to do. I mean, I love to do it also. And I did not want to make him mad because I came in while he was in the middle of hunting. A lot of our neighbors hunt also back in that far area. So I definitely didn't want to ruin anyone's hunt. And I definitely did not want to ruin my father's hunt. So, no, I waited until he came back, which was probably around noon or so, which afterwards we went ahead and went back to the house and got lunch.
Ooh, waiting for your dad to come in had to be about the longest 5 hours of your life.
Yeah, truthfully, Vic, if I hadn't had a firearm, I would have been out of there in a heartbeat.
Yeah, I can't say I blame you. That had to be horrible. After that experience, is it safe to say that you haven't been out hunting again?
Oh, no, I've been out hunting plenty of times. Like I said with my sister, I love nature. I thoroughly enjoy hunting. Even though these things are scary and these experiences I've had have been very frightening, I pretty much refuse to live my life in complete and utter fear. It doesn't make sense to me. If I feel uneasy while I'm back there, I leave. But most of the time, I don't have any uneasy feelings when I'm out there. It's just when I do have those uneasy feelings, that's when I go ahead and go, okay, I'm going back in. But yes, I have been hunting ever since.
I'm sure it hasn't been lost on you the fact that whatever it was that was behind you, it had you dead to rights, and the only reason why you walked out of that spot that day was because it let you walk out of that spot.
Yeah, that's definitely been something that's crossed my mind. Because, like I said, it was within 10 to 15 feet, and if it had wanted to, it could have easily gotten me had it wanted to. I've often thought, could it have been a wild animal like a coyote or something like that? Vic, we don't have large predators, in southeastern Indiana. The biggest predators we have are coyotes. There's the occasional bobcat that's seen. We don't have bears. We don't have anything large like that. And with coyotes, they will avoid people at all costs unless they are sick or injured. And had this thing been a coyote, if it had been sick, I don't understand why I wasn't attacked. Because a sick animal it wouldn't have had any fear of me. It would have went ahead and went right for me, and it would have attacked me. It just doesn't make sense to me that it would be a wild animal of some sort. It was definitely something that I just cannot explain. Truthfully, Vic, I kind of think one of the biggest reasons why these things are so scary is the fact that we've never seen anything like them in existence. Because they basically fit the description of what Hollywood would call a werewolf. That's just something that doesn't exist. I think that the biggest frightening thing about them is their appearance. I definitely think they're dangerous if they're pushed. That's with any wild animal, though. You also got to think of them as wild animals, too. There's been plenty of times where people have seen bears, and yeah, I would say, a bear's a pretty frightening animal, knowing what it can do to a person. But very rarely do they go off and attack people. Usually there's something that happens that causes the attack to happen. Getting in between them and their food, getting in between them and their cubs, startling one, for instance. So yeah, it's definitely, you definitely got to look at them as a wild animal. Like I said, they are scary, they are frightening, But I definitely think one of the biggest things about them is the fact that they look like something that shouldn't exist, and it basically throws your brain for a loop.
Yeah, that is a good way to look at it. They are awfully scary, but like you just mentioned, in most occasions, they don't play the part. They don't attack you on sight. They'll scare the dickens out of you and let you go. There's a third encounter that you had, an eyes-on encounter with what quite possibly could have been a Dogman. Please tell us about that.
My third encounter happened, I would say I was probably around maybe 18, 19 years old. I was driving back to my house. It's not my house anymore, but it was my childhood home. Driving back towards there, my house sits on top of a large ridge. And to get into the ridge, you got to go up this large, windy hill. Going up this hill, the hill eventually makes it starts to kind of snake up. It's got a few, sharp turns. And then you'll take a left and you'll go around the bend. And then you'll keep going up and you'll be at the top of the hill. Well, as I was going around that hill, I noticed on the hillside right next to the road, there was a large black shape sitting there. And went ahead and was kind of looking at it. It was covered in black hair. It looked like it had almost like a child's head on it. I guess like I'd say like the hair around it, like on its head, seemed kind of puffy, almost like you'd see in a chow. You could definitely see a snout on it. It appeared kind of short, kind of stubby. Don't recall seeing ears. And as I was going by it, I kind of looking at it, I was like, that's a huge dog. I mean, to me, it looked like it could have weighed anywhere from 150 to 200 pounds. That is a huge black dog. I don't think I've ever seen that dog around here before. As I was looking at it, the thing kind of locked eyes with me, and it just kind of, its head just kind of followed me in my gaze as I went, and went ahead and kept driving. That was the last time I saw it. And I sat there thinking, after I got home, I was like, who around there owns a large black dog? As far as I know, there's not a single person in that small little area that owns a large black dog that would have weighed, nearly 200 pounds. It just kind of threw me for a loop when I saw that. Because this thing was good size. It was on all fours, but it was big. It was enough for me to go, whoa, what is that? That was the last time that I saw that. Ever since, I've not seen a large black dog in that area. I've looked at the same exact spot every time I drive by now, just in case something's there and I want to check it out. The thing is, I actually thought of this a few days ago when it came to my mind, and we were talking about this. I had a childhood friend who lived probably about 30 feet away from where I saw this thing. One day he got on the school bus and he was talking to me, and he said that he'd seen what looked like a dog walking on two legs outside of his family room window. We were kids at the time. I mean, I hadn't even heard of Dogman or whatever you'd like to call them. And I was like, well, how do you know it wasn't your dog doing that? He's like, I don't know. He's like, it might have been. And that was the end of it. It kind of creeped me out now that I was thinking about it, because he might have seen one of these things outside of his family room, and I possibly saw one not 30 feet away from where he lived.
It sure sounds to me like that area is a bevy of activity.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. I've not really talked to anyone about it, but like I said before, this whole subject is kind of something that just you're laughed at if you talk about it. So I've really not talked to anyone in the area if they've had any encounters, just because I don't want to be ridiculed or anything like that. I mean, as far as I know, in my own family, it's only been me and my sister that have had encounters with these things. I've asked my father if he's seen anything strange, He's always been like, no, I can't think of anything. I've asked my mother if she's had any strange encounters. Again, no. I mean, nothing that she can think of. It's kind of weird that, only, me and my sister are the ones that, as far as we know, have had encounters with these things.
If both you and your sister have had that many experiences with dogmen in that area, I'd be astonished if other people there weren't seeing them too. It's probably a situation where they are seeing them or they have seen them and just kept the encounters to themselves. I bet you good money that's what happened.
Yes, I wouldn't be surprised if that was the case.
Yeah, more than likely that is. Well, it's about time to wrap the show up, Tim. Do you have any closing comments you'd like to share?
Yeah, definitely be aware of your surroundings. When you go out in the woods, you've got to remember to keep your eyes open, to keep your ears open, and to keep your head on a swivel. Like I said, I don't think people should live in fear of these things. Yes, they're scary. Yes, they are extremely frightening when you do have an encounter with one. But, if you really think about it, we only get, if we're lucky, 100 years on this planet. And it's such a waste if you live in complete and constant fear for your life every day. And if you really do think about it, death waits around every corner in life. So you can't be in constant fear about it. If you have seen one of these things and you do need to talk to someone about it, contact Vic. He does care. He does want to talk to you about your encounter. When I had my encounters, eventually after listening to his radio show and looking up stuff on the internet, I began putting pieces together, and the pieces fit to where I would be comfortable saying that I had an encounter with Dogman. And I truthfully didn't know, what to do. I didn't know if I should talk to someone about it or if I should just keep it to myself. Eventually I decided that people need to know these things are real, and people also need to know that if there's someone they need to talk to and they don't want to be ridiculed about it, they don't want to be made fun of, you can always talk to Vic. He definitely does care, and he does want to hear your encounters. Definitely keep your head on a swivel, but remember, don't live in fear, because it's the waste.
I can't thank you enough for coming on this show. I really do appreciate it.
Thank you for having me, Vic.
Oh, thanks again for coming. Well, have yourself a great night, okay?
You too.
Thanks. I'll talk to you later.
See ya.
Bye. If you've had a Dogman encounter and you'd like to speak with me about it, whether in private or on the show, you can reach me at contact@dogmanencounters.com. I'd love to hear from you.